All right, so JavaScript Part 2, the daily law. Over time, masters gain an intuitive feel for the whole of their field. It's excitement and joy that awaits you if you are patient. Let's take a look at our JavaScript sprint review. All right, so this is going to close out at the end of this week. Let's take a look at our board. All right, so Jorge went ahead and defined scope. Right, scope is a way for us to define the function variables. It's a way for us to define the variables that are used in a program. So outside of the function, those are known as global variables. But inside the brackets, those curly braces of the function, that is a local variable. It is local to the block of code. So this is the variable's accessibility. It's the ability to access a variable. I'd highly recommend that you guys contribute to this post, right? We also went over conditional statements. So the goal of a conditional statement is to create criteria for making a choice, a decision based on that, right? So based on that decision, a outcome is made, right? Then we have, what is the purpose of scope, right? We want to understand how variables are being stored, why are we putting them in the order that we're putting them in, where are we accessing them in our code, right? And then here's an example of how we use JavaScript to debug our code. As we saw with the example yesterday with Riley, right, we were able to just instantly move through and create a method. Key to programming is to set a test and work towards achieving the test, right? You want to be able to measure your output from what you're putting in. Remember, a function is fundamentally something that takes an input and returns an output. A computer, fundamentally, is just a system of files, right? So, we also have this concept of a DOM, the document object model, which is a hierarchical structure, right? It starts with a document, and then we have our elements, and then from our elements we have different attributes. Okay. So how do we use the JavaScript DOM, right? We use the JavaScript DOM to manipulate the HTML elements. And what are JavaScript events? All right. Events are a way for us to call JavaScript, right? So after the page has finished loading, after an input field has been checked, after a button has been clicked, right? How do we use JavaScript events? Well, on click event, on submit event, on mouse over, on mouse out, HTML5 standard events, right? These are ways for us to call JavaScript events. We also covered regular expressions, specifically how to access characters from those regular expressions. Here are some definitions. We have numeric definitions. We also have alphabet character definitions, right? And then how do we use them? Right, here's how we can create a regex in JavaScript. Okay, we can use wildcard to match all the preceding expressions 0 more times. And then we also have JSON, the JavaScript object notation for sending an object from one place to the next. How do we use JSON? Okay, so we use JSON to send keys and values from one location to the next. What is local storage? Okay, so local storage is a property that allows JavaScript sites and apps to save key value pairs in a web browser with no expiration date. This means that the data stored in the web browser will persist even after the browser window is closed. How do we use local storage? Okay, so we have local storage and we have session storage. Web storage objects in local storage and session storage allow to save key value pairs in the browser. So the session storage will remain even after the full browser refresh. So we still have these other optional homeworks which can be completed. Awesome job to everyone who responded. I encourage everyone who hasn't responded, right? Why not? Why not put in your thoughts and share a discussion and learn from each other, right? Okay. So as we continue this journey, what we want to do is practice our JavaScript as much as possible, so that way it becomes a fingertip feel, something where it's, easy for us to just call up from memory, right? How can we do this? Just get started. All right. So we've gone through debugging. We went through the DOM. We've gone through the hierarchical model for the DOM. We've gone over the methods that we can use within the DOM. And we have gone through all of the child nodes, child elements. Gone through these as well. And we've covered the create element method, we've covered the class name, we've covered getting an ID, setting an attribute, getting an attribute, removing an attribute, and the has attribute, which returns a Boolean value. We've gone over how to add a child to a node. We've gone over how to create a node. We've gone over how to remove that node from the DOM, and we've gone over how to leverage the class list. We can toggle a class, we can remove a class, we can add a class. We've gone over how we can add content using .text content, and how we can update the HTML, even remove HTML using the outer HTML, and how to access values and how to access the style. Right? And then JavaScript events. So we have an add event listener. What this does is it takes an event and it calls a function. We have the event object. This has attributes on it such as target, right? The target allows us to change properties on the target element. Then we have prevent default. So prevent default will stop that event from bubbling up. And then we have things such as mouse events, on click, double click, mouse down, mouse up, mouse enter, mouse leave, mouse over, mouse out, mouse move, right? Then we have a few more events here, right? We got submit, key down, key up, key press, focus, blur, and cut. You can also capture things such as pasting an input, cutting an input, and modifying the input. So stop propagation will stop the event from bubbling up. The regular expressions that we are using here, the regular expressions that we saw for characters, allow us to execute the regular expressions, test the regular expressions, match them, search them, can even replace them. Here are a few more characters from regular expressions, right? The caret is the start of the regular expression, the $ is the end, the wildcard here is to get all, then you can use this as a parameter value, this is to escape a character, so we've gone through those. There's a way that you can access character sets, right? We have the characters A through Z capital, A through lowercase z, 0 through 9. We also looked at quantifiers, right? These quantifiers allow us to quantify the regular expression. Here are a few more word character sets that we have. And then we have our HTML validation. So required, the required attribute means that that attribute forces the input to be filled out. And then we have min length and max length. Min, max, type, and pattern. All right, so these are ways for us to validate the HTML. So we also have advanced array methods to simplify any sort of operation that we're running with arrays. So we have sort, find, map, reduce, and filter. Sort will sort the array. We can find an element in array. Map will apply a function to a value from the array. And then we can use reduce to reduce an array, and then we can use filter to filter the contents of an array. All right, then we have JavaScript timing. So these set timeout and set intervals can be used to delay the call of a method, and then we have clear timeout and clear interval. These will remove those delays. And then we looked at the JavaScript object notation. So the JavaScript object notation known as JSON, right? This JSON allows us to parse a string and create an object which can be transported across the internet. Finally, we have local storage. So local storage is a way for us to store a variable in the browser. We have session storage. Session storage will allow us to store a variable in the browser even after page refresh. And then we have local storage.setItem, which is a method that will save the key value pair for local storage, and then session storage does the same thing, except it does it for a session. And then we have local storage.removeItem key, which will remove the item by its key, or we can fetch the item by its key using getItem. And then we also have local storage.clear. Local storage.clear will remove all of the items from local storage. Okay. All right. So here's an example of a to-do list. Go ahead and go to our repository. I'll right-click on this, View in Finder, and open this. So this is a to-do list with local storage, right? We can remove this to-do, and then we can enter a new to-do item. So we'll do study, right? And the date will be, we'll do 03, do 04, 04. 2022. Study complete week 5 course material. And we'll put that at the highest priority. And we'll add this item. So in this project, we're leveraging third-party resources. This is a way for us to speed up the way that we are writing code, right? We don't have to use CSS to style everything. We can leverage what's already here. So this provides us with an ability to rapidly start to write code. We can even add more to-dos here. Make this into 0404.
I have a question.
Yeah, so they can hear you from that microphone. You don't even need to, just because I'm unmuted, everyone should be able to hear you.
So let's say I took this, right, and I had an idea that I wanted to modify. Would you overcode myself like if I tax
Yeah, I think that's a cool idea. I would work on just getting something like this to work. This is a fairly complicated sort of application that we've built here. The goal is to just get this to store something in the browser.
So I couldn't actually hear him.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. All right, can everyone hear us now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so yeah, Jorge was talking about adding functionality to change the items to uppercase, right? And the main thing that we want to do here is we want to store these things in our file storage. That's the goal. we want to be able to place these items in our file storage. Right?
So what third-party software is this using to do it local storage?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? So we're using Google Fonts. Okay. We also have custom CSS here. I'm also using Bootstrap.
What's Bootstrap?
Bootstrap is a third-party library that will allow you to add very modern-looking widgets to your application. So you can use this to come up with something that's more modern, more unique, right? And we're using jQuery. We talked about jQuery. To understand jQuery, it's really just a third-party library. It's using a selector here with a $sign instead of document.query selector. This is fairly well commented out, right? So the goal is to reproduce this in your own way, right? We want to take this and we want to rebuild this in a way that is customized to what you're doing. So the challenge for today is to recreate this. Just remove the JavaScript file and start to understand how to select items on this. This is a project that should take us the rest of class, right? And we have a way to start to understand what we're going to make here, right? This is the starting point. Okay.
So we shouldn't use the to-do list that we created.
This is an iteration of the to-do list. By all means, if you want to add this to your to-do list, I'd recommend doing that. That'd be a good challenge. Take your to-do list and then combine what you have here.
I just don't know if I do the to-do list correctly, because that's what we should do, the body of the HTML.
Mm-hmm.
That's the correct way, because it's
I still can't clearly hear what he's saying.
Yeah. So he said that he already has a to-do list and he is wants to use that to-do list for this project. And I said, that's fine. Yeah, if you want to do that, that's good. This has been created, right? So this is a template for us to build off of. The goal is to link these third-party resources and then create the JavaScript necessary to sort by a due date, sort by a priority, remove items, enter an item. So the item could be do homework. There we go.